A very good day and a warm welcome to each and everyone who are present here for this talk for today called Navigating Your Purpose. First of all, I would like to welcome our rector, Dr. Father Joby Joseph, who is also the head of department of the Value Education Department. I would also like to welcome our esteemed speaker for the day, Dr. Doni Peter Chaco, whose introduction will be given in detail by our rector later. I would also like to welcome all of you who are joining us online through Zoom as well as YouTube. Thank you for joining with us and welcome to this talk on navigating your purpose. As we begin today's program, as usual, I would like to invite our rector, Dr. Father Joby Joseph, to kindly lead us in prayer.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Arlene. Dr. Donny Peter, Chaco, Sir Nathaniel, and dear students, wonderful time that we are coming back to you after a small break. We will continue this as we begin this day and this session. We place ourselves in the presence of God, ask His Spirit to guide us, and let's say a small prayer. Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. But our Father, we thank you for bringing us together. Give us purpose, and as we reflect, navigate us in our purpose and in our destiny. You who hold, you who guide, you who lead. You're going to read a small word from the Holy Scripture, Bible, Psalm 128. Happy is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. You shall eat the fruit of the labor of your hands. You shall be happy, and it shall go with you always. Lord our Father, thank you for bringing us together. We thank you especially for this opportunity, having Sir Donny Peter with us, and listen and made correct our ways, made focus towards the purpose. We pray in a very special way for Dr. Donny Peter, his wife, and the 2 kids, and all his mission of leading young people to purpose and overall to divine plan. May he be blessed. Bless all of us. Pray for Mama Marlene and his family, Sir Nathaniel and his family, and all who are attending, and our students. Keep us always in good health and towards the divine purpose you have for us. In your precious name, Lord, we pray. Amen. Dear students, we are happy to have this, not an unknown face, very familiar. Okay. Last time when he came, we've been very regular to St. Anne's College. He was, we call him Donny Peter Donny. He has a prefix now. He has finished his doctorate. Okay. International speaker, leadership coach, and visited and spoken in 27 countries across 5 continents. And he has his PhD in transformational leadership. And a very down years up to 2015-16, he was an annual figure in our college for all our programs. The strategic plan that we as St. Anne's College has planned and executed, let's say the extensions, or he named it satellite centers, was his dream, sitting together in one of our rooms. I still remember, and I had to walk up to or run up to Bindihati and be there 1 year. I've come back. A lot of things that many groups that he has animated. He was a regular animator for our youth retreats and a lot of many students. And in fact, whenever we have a program or retreat, they always ask the old batches, is Donny coming? I think that was his inspiration, and we are really privileged. Donny, be assured of our prayers, and we long to hear you and our students. I'm sure it's a wonderful opportunity. Sorry, it's from Melbourne. A time we had to change to match to him, otherwise we would have to keep him awake in the night. Usually our program's at 5:30 here, but I'm sure he was willing. Thank you once again. Thanks, Mama Marlene, Sir Nathaniel, who is behind, and Sir, over to Donny. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Father Joby. It's been a pleasure to come back to St. Anthony's, at least virtually. And before we start, I'll just check the screen sharing so that we're all good to go and we won't have any interruptions. Let me see. Yes, is my screen visible? Can you see
Yes,
the screen? Is it?
it's okay.
Yeah. All right. Oh, good. Okay, so I'll come back to that in a while. That's lovely. Okay, so I think today I wanted to talk to you about navigating your purpose. Now, all of you are in young people. You're challenging. You're waiting to look at the world, and obviously, the world that you are right now in is a different world. It's totally unexpected. We gotten used to a little bit now, but nobody predicted this, right? And that's the reason why it's very, very important today to be aware of how to actually get through when things unexpected like this happens. Now, from time immemorial, a lot of people have excelled despite the circumstances, right? When there were, there was a time in the world when wars were common, when famine was common, when things would just crash without any any what is that kind of notice, right? But people still survived. And out of those people who survived, there were many people who excelled beyond everybody else. And one of the key things that made these people successful is that they had what we call as purpose. So that's the reason why today I thought we'll talk about purpose, right? So let's jump into what we have. So we'll have a session for about 40 minutes and then 45 minutes. And then I'll take some time where we can take some questions and hopefully answer some of the queries that you can have. So let's start. This is okay. Great. All right. So like Joby was telling us, I live in Melbourne, Australia, and I have a beautiful wife and two wonderful kids. My daughter is 9 and my son's 4. And they're keeping us up on our toes all day because we're all stuck in lockdown here in Melbourne. So today when I was thinking about what to talk to you and this topic about navigating your purpose, I was faced with a kind of a choice, right? I didn't know what to do because there's one thing of giving you a lot of information, right? There'll be a lot of stuff that I can singularly lead you, or I can talk to you about a lot of different areas and try to string it together with this kind of a cohesion, like a story. Right. So I want you to use your chat. And if you can tell me, what is this logo that you have? Have you seen, do you know what this logo stands for? Right. Okay, we got some people chatting. Do you remember this logo? So how many of you recognize this logo? Yeah, so this is a more familiar logo, right? Netflix, right? But the logo on the left, Doordarshan, right? This was, so when I grew up, when I was probably your age, we just had one channel. We just had one TV, one channel. And all we had to do was listen or watch that if we wanted some information, right? Today, though, we are in a myriad set of options, right? You've got Netflix, you've got Amazon Prime, you've got Disney Plus. You can basically, entertainment is at your fingertips. You can choose anything that you want, right? Anything that you want. So when I was thinking about how to do today's session, I thought I'll probably adopt a Netflix kind of style, right? Instead of just giving you one thing and I'll talk about a couple of different things and try to give you a lot of options, a lot of content in this 40 minutes that we have. All right, so let's get going. Now, I'm sure you've noticed that, over the last couple of years, this has been a fairly common hairstyle. You've got Virat Kohli, you've got Brad Pitt. A lot of people have this new kind of hairstyle that's been in vogue over the last couple of years. Now, I have a question, right? How old do you think this fashion style is? Like how or when did this style kind of begin, right? Can somebody kind of say when you remember when this style started becoming in fashion? And that tells us a lot about how the world around us moves, right? Because surprisingly, some of you might think this is a very recent fad. It's been there for probably 2 years, 4 years, 5 years. But I want to tell you something. It's going to go a little bit more back, right? A little bit more back. We're talking about 20, 50, 100 years back. Yeah, this was a style that was very common about 100 years back, right? And it's come back in style now, right? Now, I want to ask you a question, right? So if you can quickly in your chat, can you tell me which place, right, this style was actually familiar? Where do you think, right, in which part of the world was this hairstyle started or it became famous? Okay, so, some people are saying Nagaland, some people are saying England, right? America, the US, Argentina, Dutch, Norway. Now, what's interesting is that this style, right, this fashion that we see today started in Kerala, right? Way back in the 1900s. Isn't that surprising? That in a place in India, in Kerala, you had this style in vogue, right? Which is today, the fashion statement of Virat Kohli and Brad Pitt. What I want to talk to you with this example is that many times the things that we think are in demand are basically coming back from something that was old. A lot of the things that we think are real today are just different versions of what has already happened in the past. And all of these latest fads that we think about, the way we understand our world is not very new. Obviously, we've got touchscreen phones, but touchscreen phones are just showing us information, right? And this information that we can talk to people, there was a method of this earlier on, right? We've just tried to make it faster, make it better, make it reaching out to a lot more people, but the essence of it is the same. And that's the reason why we can learn a lot from what's happened in the past. Now, I want to show you a small kind of a figure, right? Now, this is the world population from 8000 BC to where we are today, right? Now, if you look at this graph, what do you see is right about at 8000 BC, there were only 5 million people in the entire world. And that kind of stayed constant for about 8,000 years, right? For about 8,000 years, the population of was roughly between 5 to 10 million. Right? And then you see this going on and on, but round about in the 10th and the 12th century, you slightly start to see an increase in the world population. Now, it's not increasing by much. We're just coming to about 100 million, right? But the population of the world really takes off only in the 20th century, right? So you've got about 1900 when suddenly you see this huge kind of uptick. But the biggest uptake, if you look at this graph, is about the 1960s and the 70s, which means to say that the world population has shot up in the last 80 to 90 years. Isn't that fascinating? That for such a long time, so here's a quick question, right? What do you think the world population is going to be by the year 2100? I want you to put it on the chat. What do you think is the world population, right? I'll come back to the previous slide again, just to get you an idea, right? So I said the world population has come in the last 50 years. We've seen this huge uptake from just about, right, under a billion to 7.6 billion in the last 40, 50 years, right? So what do you think the world population is going to be by 2100? A lot of people say the world is end, it's going to come down. You've got 15 billion as an answer, right? You've got stuff. Some people say the world population is decreasing. No, it's not going to decrease. It's going to increase. It's not going to decrease. It's going to go, right? But here's the thing, right? And some of you getting this answer right, that the world population is going to be roughly about 11 billion, right? 11 billion. Now, that might sound a bit surprising because, hey, you've got this last 50 years where the population has slightly increased to such a great extent. But then why is it going to not exponentially increase? And that's the first thing that we have about our lives. We think that certain trends will continue the same way, right? But that's not how things happen because a lot of other things factor in. And that's what makes it interesting. Next question, right? What percentage of the world is living in extreme poverty today? By extreme poverty, I mean less than about 100 rupees a day, right? People who do not have, 30 rupees a day, who do not even earn 30 rupees a day. That's extreme poverty, which means they don't have food to eat, they can't survive. What do you think is the population of the world right now living in extreme poverty? So I'll give you a couple of things. So in 1800, it was about 85% of the world's population who was in extreme poverty, 85% of the world's population. In 1966, 50% of the world's population was below the extreme poverty line, right? What do you think the current population that's living in extreme poverty today is? Yeah, 45, 50, 60%, we're seeing a lot of numbers, 78%, 40, 85%. The answer is actually less than 9%. Yes, we're living in a world where actually the extreme poverty rate has come down to just about 9%, right? And the good thing is that it's coming down even further. right? And it's not just poverty. A lot of things that are decreasing today, right? Smallpox is decreasing, hunger is decreasing, the death penalty is decreasing, children dying of diseases is decreasing, nuclear arms have reduced, child labor is reduced, HIV infections have reduced, right? The price of solar panels have reduced. We're living in a world where things are getting better, right? And what's increasing, right? The entertainment is increasing in the world. I told you about Netflix, but the people of, water is increasing, harvest is increasing, the science is increasing, immunization is increasing, the internet is increasing, electricity is increasing, girls in school are increasing, new music is being created, women have a right to vote, species are being saved. We're talking about a world today where things are just getting better. Now, when I say this, some of you might say, but Donnie, what about the things that are not getting better? But what I want you to focus on is in the last 50 years, we're talking about a world that's transformed. What does that mean? It means that today a lot more people have access to opportunities than before. And not just opportunities, the barriers to getting those opportunities have also been removed. Right? When I was probably your age, I did not have access to the internet. There was no YouTube. There was no social media. There wasn't anything that we could actually study. But you guys can listen to me right now. I'm across on the other side of the world in Australia, and you can listen to me, right? And not just me. After this, you can go onto YouTube on my channel and listen to the other things I've got. Right? You've got access to this information, and not just me. Today, study courses from Harvard, from Stanford, absolutely free on the internet. Think about it. Never before in the world has there been such a time where there's been so much of opportunity. Now, when I say that, some of you might be thinking, but Donnie, what's that got to do with me? How is it affecting me? And that is what it brings us to the question here. Now, I told you that things have changed a lot, but some things haven't changed, right? Now, and that is why we come to this question of purpose. Now, some of you might be sitting here and saying, but Donnie, I've got so many other problems. I've got the internet, I've got access to these things, but I don't have time. I don't have interest. I don't know what I can do with my life. I don't know where my career is headed. I'm not passionate about those things. Now, you know what's something, right? Everybody in the world has been going through this, and not just you. For the last 8,000 years, a lot of people, majority of the people in the world have been at the same state that you are in. They don't know what to do because they have a dream, but they don't know how to get there. And that's where we are going to focus on today. I'm going to help you understand what you can have. Now, I'm sure all of you would have thought about becoming better in life, right? And that's the reason why you're probably listening to this course, other than the attendance. But you're sitting here because you've said, okay, this is a course, this is a class that can help me get better. That's good. You've done the first step. But here's the thing. You also think one step further, right? How many of you want to be millionaires, right? How want to have a million, like a crore or $10 million? How many of you would like to have a lot of money in your life? I'm sure a lot of your hands will go up, right? How many of you want to have a great job? How many of you want to travel the world? And I can see that a lot of people will raise your hands, which is very good. Now, let me ask you this question. Have you dreamt about it? Have you dreamt that you would have probably have $1 million with you, or that you would be living and working in another part of the world? Have you dreamt about that? Great, that's fantastic. Now, the next thing, and this is most important, is that after you dreamt about it, what did you do? And you tell me, Donnie, I woke up, right? And then I looked at myself and I'm like, I'm in Shillong. I'm going to St. Anthony's College. I don't think I'll get there, right? Now, we kind of have defeated this dream. Now, what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to share with you a tool now that can actually help you actualize that kind of thing. So one of the things you must understand is when we talk about purpose, a lot of people think that purpose is about, right? That your purpose is something where you're thinking you have to get to a place, right? It's something that you discover. No, your purpose is something that you do. It's what you are. And everything that you're doing is leading towards that. That's purpose. right? So let's do a simple exercise, right? Now, if you've got a sheet of paper with you, a book or something, I want you to take a sheet of paper and make these 4 columns, right? Like this, right? And I want you to write down the year 2036. Now, what's 2036? It's 15 years from now, okay? It's 15 years from now, 2036, right? Now, what I want you to say is, remember those dreams that you have sometimes, right? I want you to start writing down what are the benefits that you want from your life, right? So what are these benefits that we talk about, right? So you've got the benefits, right? You want a house, right? What kind of house you'd like to live in 15 years, right? If you want a car or a vehicle, what kind of vehicle would you like to drive, right? If you want to be in a happily married relationship, what kind of relationship you would like to have, right? And it's a loving, caring relationship. I don't know if you want to be married with having children, but write down what are all the benefits that you want. Now, remember, don't write down how you're going to get that. We're going to get there. Just write down what are the benefits that you want to have, right? What's the wealth you'd like to have? How much money would you like to have? What would you want to do with your time, right? Writing down this. What this is doing is it's giving you an idea of 15 years from now, I want to have these things, right? So we're purely thinking what we can have, right? Now, the next step is an interesting thing, right? What is the kind of stuff that these benefits, right? To get to these benefits. Now, everybody does this exercise. Everybody dreams about these things. We dream about what we'd like to have, the car we want to drive, and all these things. We dream about this. Some of us dream about it most of the time. But most people stop at that stage. And that's where a lot of people miss out, because the key lies in the second step. And that second step is the next column, which I would say is the position, right? Now, if you want to have $1 million, right, nobody's going to give you $1 million, right? To have $1 million, you need to be in a position that gives you $1 million. Right? So it might be as an entrepreneur, it might be as an artist, it might be, working as an engineer or some other position, right? It is a position that gives you that money, right? You have a designation, a title that whoever has the title will be making those benefits, right? So here's what I want you to do now. I want you to write down what are the different positions that can get you the benefits that you want. Now, some of you might be in first year of college, second year of college. Some of you must be finishing college. Some of you would have already finished college. And you might be saying, Donnie, but now what's the position? I've already chosen a career. Don't worry, because what we are focusing here is that for the benefits that you want, there can be multiple ways in which you can earn that benefit. Right? There can be multiple positions, right? Now, sometimes, for example, right? Let's say some of you have taken up arts, right? Now, if you want to be a commercial pilot, now that's not going to work out because you need to have mathematics and science to actually become a commercial pilot. So apart from that, there can still be a lot of positions that will get you those benefits, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to focus, right? I want you to focus on the different positions, right? On 3 different positions that will give you all the benefits that you've written on top. 3 different positions, right? Next, come to the column on the left, the skills, right? And this is the interesting part, right? Ask yourself, right? Ask yourself, what are the skills that are required to get that position? So I'll give you an example, right? So let's say you want to be a CEO of a company because the CEO of a company will be making this much money. I'll be able to buy this car. I'll have the house, right? To be a CEO of a company, ask yourself, what are the skills that a CEO requires? Right? So there you probably have 3 different areas. One is academic skills, right? Which is basically a basic degree or a master's degree in an area that's going to give you the skills to run a company. Second, you've got interpersonal skills, right? Skills like networking, skills like talking, etc., that you actually need negotiating that will actually make you a good CEO. Right? And then third, you've got experience. Now, just having a degree wouldn't make. You need to work in an industry where you can actually learn the ropes of that industry, learn the ropes of that job so that you become experienced enough to get the position of a CEO. Does that make sense? So now you've identified 3 different positions that will give you the benefits you want in your life, right? Now come back to the skills column and ask for each of these positions, what are the skills that I need to have so that I get this position? So it might seem 5 years of work experience. It might require probably a master's degree in this area. It might require a couple of other skills you can pick up. And then what will happen is you'll have these skills that will actually give you that position. And then finally, you come to the first column, which is the plan. And this is the most crucial part of this exercise, right? You ask yourself, hey, what do I have to do in the next 3 years to get these skills? What do I have to do in the next 1 year to get these skills? What do I have to do in the next 3 months to get these skills? And now you'll have a roadmap so that you can say, if I choose to take one position, I have to have these skills, and this is my 3-year plan to acquire those skills. And over the next couple of years, over 15 years, I'm going to get all the skills that I need so that I can get to that position and I can get to these benefits. Now, this is the part most people miss out on. They do the dreaming part, but they forget what are the dreams, how will it get, what positions give them those dreams, what skills give them those positions, and what's my plan to acquiring those skills. And today, like I told you, the opportunities for acquiring these skills are amazing, right? Today, you have access to get most of the interpersonal skills for absolutely free. You can even get a lot of academic skills absolutely free. Experience comes from this availability of multiple skills. So when we hire people here, what we're looking for today is not people with a single skill, right? So we will be hiring somebody who can be a manager to lead a leadership program, but we're also asking somebody who can have an active social media presence. We're also looking at somebody who can actually be good at coaching, right? We're also asking if that person can have an understanding of finance. We're talking about multiple skills, right? Now, when you are in college, you have this opportunity to learn these multiple skills, right? So what happens is you've got these skills that you can acquire right now, right? Starting today, you can start building these skills, but you can't just blindly build the skills. For building those skills, you need to have the plan, right? Because that plan will tell you what are the skills you require. And when you get those skills, you'll get to the position, and that position will get you to the benefits. Does that make sense? Right? Now, I wish when I was starting out as a young teenager, I had this vision, right? I wanted to become a speaker, right? Now, I was good at speaking because I was training to speak, but I needed to get better, right? I wanted to be a person who would go and influence other people, right? I wanted to go and share stories, right? I wanted to be able to coach others to be what I was. So I asked myself, right, what is the skills that are required to do that? And the first skill that I wanted was knowledge. I needed to know a lot of information. Otherwise, I cannot come and share it to you, right? So I asked myself, what are the top books that I can read to actually get this information? So I made a list. And when I finished that list, there was 200 books. I had to read 200 books to get a whole lot of knowledge. I was like, 200 books, that's impossible. But then I asked myself, hey, do I want to get to this stage? I said, you know what? I'm actually going to do that. I'm actually going to start reading these books. So I started by just reading a couple of pages, and that became a couple of chapters. And then eventually I was able to finish a book in a month, right? Then I started out, but that started becoming 2 books a month and 4 books a month and 5 books a month. I was reading a couple of books a week. Within a couple of years, I had gone through my 200 books on that list. So I had already gotten the information that I wanted now. But the second thing was I needed experience. I need to go to a place where I can actually test this. Where do I go and get myself to be an expert at speaking? And that's why I thought, what's the best place where you can actually go and talk to people and they will actually pay money to listen to you? Well, it's a university, right? You pay money to listen to your lecturers talk, right? And you can ask them to shut up. They will talk no matter what, right? So I guess that's a great place where I can actually go and test my skills of persuasion, whether I can keep an audience captive. And so I went to Christ University back in Bangalore. And I said, I'd like to teach business management because that was where my academic qualifications, right? I'd done my master's in business, and I said, I want to go and let me go and teach the BBM students, right? And the master students. And so I spent a year teaching, but what I was doing was I was perfecting my skill of delivery. I was perfecting how I can actually speak to an audience, how I've got 45 minutes, I can keep them engaged without making them go to sleep, right? And so now I had the knowledge, and then I had the experience, the skill at delivering. But I missed a crucial part. I had to go and actually work to get that experience. Otherwise, people would not listen to just a young 21-year-old talking about a lot of mantras. You have to have some life experience, you have a work experience. So I said, I'm going to work in these companies around the world so that I start to get this valuable global experience that I can share to people. right? And so I looked at a place where I can go abroad and work and get that experience. And once I had gotten that, I'd got all these things that I require to go forward, right? I had the experience, I had the skill, I had the knowledge, right? And I had the qualifications. And then I was able to start my work. So you'll see how this plan works when you have this benefits that you want, the position that will give you those benefits, the skill that are required to get that position, and finally, the plan to acquire those skills, right? So with that, we'll probably close the first chapter of our presentation. Let's go to the second chapter from Netflix. Right? So we're now flicking to the next show, right? How many of you are familiar with this guy? Right? A lot of people in the world, I think there will not be too many people who do not know who Bill Gates is. I'm going to tell you a story about Bill Gates. But before that, I'd like to ask you a question, right? Now, Bill Gates, right? What's the kind of background that he came from? Can you just quickly chat? What's his background? Bill Gates was born in a family where his dad was, what was his dad doing? What is this? What was Bill Gates? What do you know about Bill Gates? Can you just share with me, right? He dropped out of college. Yes, a couple of people are saying he dropped out of college. What else? Yeah, he dropped out of college. His dad was a woodcutter. I get that a lot, right? His dad was a woodcutter, right? Now, here's the interesting part, right? First of all, his dad was not a woodcutter. Okay, his dad was a very qualified engineer, right? He was a very smart man. But Bill Gates was born in a very what his family was very. What was his family like? Were they financially very stable, or do you have any information about that? His family was very poor. Well, not really. He was actually born into a very rich family. Okay. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So why do I say he's born to a rich family? Because it's very important to the next part of the story. Now, so Bill Gates was born into a family where his parents could afford to send him to a private school. Now, why that's important is because when Bill Gates was going to this private school, so in America, you've got private schools and public schools. So the public schools are run by the government and they're free for all the citizens of America. But the public schools, the private schools are expensive ones where unless you have money, you can't send your kid there, right? Now, the private schools also have a lot of facilities. They have a lot of features because they're run privately, right? They're funded by companies. Now, Bill Gates' dad was rich enough, to send him to a private school. But what's important is that in America, during the time Bill Gates was in high school, 5 schools were selected to receive a grant where they had computers installed on their campuses. Across America, only 5 schools. We're talking about the 1960s here now, right? Now, what's interesting is that because he went to that school, he was able to actually see a computer, touch a computer, actually work with a computer, where almost 99.9% of the children in America at his time did not have. So he was in the place where he had that access. That's the first thing. But the second thing is very important. When most of his friends were out partying and having fun with friends and drinking, what Bill Gates was doing was every day he would go and spend time with that computer trying to teach himself programming. This is very interesting, isn't it? When everybody else was doing everything else, this was this one guy who was going and teaching himself programming, which means that he was actually better than 99.9% of all the other Americans at kids his age, because he was doing something nobody else was doing. And what's interesting is when he finished school, when he went to college, he found out that the University of Washington had an even more faster computer, right? That was not, they used to turn off the computer to conserve energy at night. So what he did was he hacked his way to get into that university lab, and he would program from 10 in the night to 4 in the morning before the security guards used to come. By the time he got to college, right, university, he was actually a wizard. He had over 10,000 hours of programming experience under his belt. And then he started out Microsoft because he already wrote the program for Windows when he was doing this kind of hacking at those computer labs. Now, what's interesting is this, right? When he got into Harvard, right? So Harvard is one of the most prestigious colleges in the world. And to get into Harvard is not a very easy phase. It's very difficult because you have to be very intelligent to get there. Now, Bill Gates does this hacking. And once he gets into Harvard, he sets up this company. And because he doesn't have the time to run the company and study at Harvard, he drops out of Harvard. right? So he's dropping out of Harvard because he's got a solid business plan. He started the company, he's competing with IBM, and that's the reason he leaves. So when people tell me Bill Gates was a dropout, right? And if only I dropped out, I'll become like Bill Gates, you've got the story all wrong, right? What matters in the story is you may be given options, you may be given opportunities, but what's more important is how much time do you spend becoming better at that opportunity? In Bill Gates' case, that was 10,000 hours, right? And that's why he's a billionaire today, right? So with that, what I want to increase you, the first tip that I want to talk to you about today, which is called incremental improvement, right? Now, Bill Gates didn't start by spending 20 hours programming a day. No, he started out small, right? Something very, very small. And this is what everybody can do. What we don't realize is the power of incremental improvement. Now, there might be some of you that think, but Donnie, I don't know how to code. Don't worry, everybody learns to code, right? Didn't you start speaking? Did you know the entire language when you started speaking? No, you did not learn anything. You had a couple of sounds, but then you learned words. Now remember, how many of us go and teach small kids the grammar of language? We don't, right? But how do we pick up language? Because of context. The way we learn has nothing to do with how much of knowledge is out there. The way we learn is little by little by little by little. Any skill in the world you can actually pick up and get to. So be it coding, be it architecture, be it photography, be it design, be it speaking, soft skills, right? Skills about negotiating, everything can be learned. But here's the first trick. The trick is incremental improvement. What does it mean? It means if you do a little bit consistently, eventually the sum is going to be whole. There are a lot of people here who say, but Donnie, where do I get this information from? Where do I read? I can't read. I'm not a reading person. Here's the thing. What if I told you if you started reading 1 page a day, right? If you started just having a 1% improvement in reading a day, you know what that'll happen, right? As it accumulates, right? As it accumulates, right? In the first month, you will only have 1.33%. Right? Which means if you started reading 1 page, you will only read 1/3 of a page extra by that 1% change. But what happens after 12 months? You read 37 times, 37 pages, right? So every day you're reading 1 page plus 1%, right? 1 page is 1%, over a year becomes 37 pages a day. Think about it. And what if you extrapolate this even more further? Wow. Think about it, right? Now, in 1 year, you will actually be reading 9 different books. If you just start 1% of an increase. Now, just imagine if you increase by 5% or 10%. We're talking about exponential growth, right? Now, is it just books? What about exercise, right? If you just start running 100 meters, right, and increase 1% a day, right? Now, I have a small story to share here. I was an athlete when I was a young person, but after some time, I forgot about exercising. I moved countries. Now, I didn't have the time. But when the pandemic set in, I said, you know what, I want to get back to running. And I started running, and I ran for 500 meters, and I was tired. I used to easily run a lot more than that. And then I came back, and my wife told me, what about the 1% rule? Yeah, that's a good thing. I'll do the 1% rule. I'm going to use a little bit, I'm going to do the 5% rule. So I'm going to start running 500 meters today, and I'm going to increase 5% more. Right? That's 25 meters more. 25 meters isn't anything. 25 meters is just 25 steps. But that 25 meters every day, as I started increasing, in 25 days, I was running 5 kilometers. Think about it. The power of 1%, right? So 1 year is 123 hours. That's 74 minutes. You can increase from 1 minute to 74 minutes a day if you start from 2 minutes a day, right? Of exercise. 2 minutes a day of exercise is 74 minutes in a year. Wow, you're going to be staying fit. Now think about where all you can apply this principle. What's your 1% improvement? Where are you going to make your 1% improvement? Is it in writing? Is it in a skill? Is it in learning? Right? If you're starting to make, and a lot of people who give up because they don't even do the 1%. Because sometimes what happens, you know what, you listen to this, now here's something that's happening. You're going to listen to this presentation, like, Donnie, that's exciting. You know what, tomorrow onwards, I'm going to start reading. And you pick up a book tomorrow and you read 30 pages. And that's the problem, right? Or you start excited, I'm going to do 50 push-ups, right? Or I'm going to go and watch, study 7 courses online. And that's a problem because you're taking too much that the next day you get tired of it all. You can't repeat that. What you need is incremental improvement, small, incremental improvements that get to there. And one more thing, right? One more key aspect of this repeating performance is also called deliberate practice. What does it mean? It means you do something and then you start to get better at doing it. You don't repeat the same thing again and again. Then you're only going to amplify your mistakes. So you do something and then you ask yourself, how can I get this better at it? Right? And then you learn from that and you start. That's called deliberate practice. So if you look at the world's best athletes, right? All of them have coaches, but what coaches do is they record the behavior of how these people are actually performing, right? And then they say, how can you make that aspect better, that 1% better, right? And eventually you get to that. Now, here's an example, right? So the English cycling team, right? I'm sure you've heard of the Tour de France. The Tour de France is the world's most elite cycling competition. Now, the English were nowhere in cycling, right? The French were there, a lot of these countries were the world leaders, but England was nowhere in that scene. Till they had a coach who said, hey, let's start working on improving 1%. What he did was he broke down everything about the English cycling team, right? From the cycles that they use to the equipment that they use to the way they tune their exercises, the way they did their mental makeup, everything. And he said, let's start improving each of these elements little, a little, a little. What resulted? For the next 4 years, England won the Tour de France. 4 years consecutively. Why? This marginal improvement in so many areas meant a huge leap forward. This is the power of incremental improvement. Now, one of the things you should understand is that when you watch experts, right, don't watch them perform. When you see, for example, a cricketer or a footballer or a musician or an artist or an actor, you just look at them and say, wow, that's amazing. I wish I could do that. That's the wrong way to approach the problem. Don't look at them performing. Look at them practicing, because that is what gives them the result that they perform. Does that make sense? Right? So if you go and see a person training, that's when you see, oh, this is what makes them there. Many times we look at the end result, we look at the millionaires, we look at the money they make, we look at the athletes, we look at the speed they run, we look at the artists, we look at their performance and say, oh, I could never do that. Obviously, you cannot do that because you've not done what they were doing, which was practicing, right? So start your incremental practice. Observe the experts and start doing that to get to that step. So that's the first tip that I want to share with you today. The second is what I call exponential growth. Now, this is something very, very important, right? It's part. So one is first incremental, small little steps. But the second is exponential growth. What's exponential growth? Exponential growth is basically X, 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 right? And if I told you, right, if you take a piece of paper, right, and fold it, right, you just take a piece of paper, right, and fold it, right? How many times do you think you can fold this paper, right? How many times do you think you can fold this paper, right? And some of you might try, oh, Donnie, I can do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I want you to look at this. I want you to Google this thing and say, how many times does it take to fold a paper, right? And say, reach the moon. Google this. Google folding paper, reaching the moon. You'll be surprised by what happens. The exponentiality. What happens is this, when you start multiplying, it kind of reaches a whole different percentage, right? Now, if you take an amount of money, if you're able to save 100 rupees a day, right? And if you every day you increase that 100 rupees a day, right? You're actually going to make $1 million before you reach 50 years of age. This is what most people don't realize. But Donnie, 100 rupees a day, that's the part of exponential growth. So if you have a marginal interest rate, right? Something where you can marginally increase. If you've got like a 7% rate of return. Now, here's what's interesting, right? If you invest something at 7% rate of return, in 10 years, that money doubles. In 10 years, right? In 20 years, that doubles again. In 30 years, that doubles again. So you look at Warren Buffett. He's probably the most popular investor in the world, one of the world's richest men, Warren Buffett. One of the things you can notice about him is Warren Buffett is the perfect example, is the power of exponentiality, right? Because what most of us do is we don't think about exponential, because we can't think of that. We can't think of how money multiplies or our effort multiplies. We just think at linear thinking, right? But the moment you look at multiplication, it changes the whole different world. You look at companies around the world. You look at Amazon, for example, right? Amazon is this multiplying company, right? They look at how you can actually multiply one industry to another industry to another industry. So when Amazon now enters any industry, that whole industry collapses, right? Because everybody's scared, because once Amazon comes in, they're out of business. How can one company have this thing? How can one company change the fortunes of every other company in the industry? It's the power of exponential growth. Because Amazon has so many customers under them that the moment they enter industry, they can decimate that industry. So the second rule that I want to lose, think about exponential growth. How you can multiply your effort, whatever you're doing, right? And then the final principle I want to leave you today is what is called as first principles, right? What is first principles? Now, first principles, right, is the art of breaking down something to what is the most simplest explanation for what it can happen. And the example I want to talk to you about is Tesla and SpaceX. Now, SpaceX was the first private company to launch a rocket into space. Now, when Elon Musk, the founder of SpaceX and Tesla, right, decided to go into space, everybody told him it can't be done. Rockets cost millions of dollars, right? And so Elon Musk asked them, he says, okay, if it costs $1 million, there must be a reason why it costs $1 million, right? Right? What is the cost, or why does it cost $1 million? Well, it obviously costs a lot of money to make those things. Why does it cost that much? Because the materials used will cost that much. What are the materials that are required? Carbon, you require zinc, you require all of these. He says, why are those things costlier? And when he went on, he found out that the actual materials only cost 2% of the rocket's actual cost. So why is it costing? Because people never thought that you had to break it down. So what he did, he said, let's go and negotiate with the metal suppliers. Let's go and negotiate the price hedging of those metals, right? And so by working out to the first level, what is the most basic things required to actually make a rocket, instead of looking at what other people said that the rocket is expensive, he was actually able to bring down the cost of making a cost 10 times, 10x the times. And that's the reason Tesla was able to launch SpaceX, right? Think about it. Go back to the first principle. What's the original thinking? What's the simplest explanation for how this can be done? And automatically now you have a whole different way of doing things, right? So don't settle for what people give you as an explanation. Go back to the first principles. What is this thing? Why was it meant to do this? And how do I break this down to the smallest level of what needs to actually be done? And then automatically you have a solution, right? Automatically you have a solution. Now, with that, you got these three people I spoke about today: Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates. Now, these people are the richest men in the world. There's also one more common factor among all these three people. Can anybody guess what's common about these three amazing people? What's common with Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates? Yes, they're obviously billionaires. They have discipline, hard work, passion, dedication. Yes. Now, another interesting fact about these three people is that these three people have had the most expensive divorces in the world. Yes, all three of them had the most expensive divorces in the world, right? Now, what does that mean? It means that, well, you can have a lot of money, right? You can have a lot of achievements, but can you really buy that happiness from there? And that's what I want to leave you guys with. That the idea of purpose in life is not just about having those things, right? So you can be the richest man in the world and still you can be lacking in something. Why? Because when you navigate your purpose is not just about you. It's about others as well as you, right? So you can start with the relationships in your families, the relationship with your friends, the relationship with society as a whole. And the moment you start thinking at all of this is one thing, and you say, my purpose is this common purpose where I am happy and so is the people around me, then that changes your life. Right? So when you start setting out that initial plan with your goals, with your vision, with what you want with your life, I would also add this factor where you say, what is actually making you happy and others happy as well? And then your purpose, you have a lot more clearer picture or what you want from life. All right. So with that, probably I'll close my session for questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dhoni. Like Father said, I'm also confused because we have sat in your sessions and I keep reminding myself that I have to call you Dr. Dhoni now, because before we used to call you Peter Dhoni. Anyways, I'm sure there will be some few questions out there. The session was very, very interesting. And I like the twisted that you added at the end, but happiness is also very, very important.
Yep.
I have one question myself.
Yeah.
Our students out here, I'm talking about Meghalaya on the whole. As we progress with our studies, our students get more demotivated, confidence level come down. Let's say 60% of them, not all, but this is a trend that is going on. As they go ahead further studies, they get more demotivated, just accepting whatever comes to them, and just be happy with whatever they have, not pushing themselves out. I mean, what would you like to tell them?
See, the key, as I said, is that 1% rule, right? The key is those habits, right? Now, all these successful people, they didn't do too many things, but we're doing these small things every day. And this is the key. When you do that 1% every day, so when you identify, you've got the benefits, you've got the position, you've got the skills, and then the plan to acquire that skill, in that skill, make it down to that small 1%. What's that 1% thing I can do in one area? And if you've got 3 or 4 things where you're spending 5 to 10 minutes every day doing it, soon that becomes a habit. And once it becomes a habit, you can't shake it off, right? Now, I wake up in the morning every day because I decided to do that. And now I can't sleep for more than 6 to 7 hours, right? I try to force myself to sleep for 7 hours, but I'm awake 6 hours and I'm up, right? In the morning, I have to wake up because that's what I do. Right? Because it's become such a habit that it's difficult to shake it off, right? So those are those habits. So the key to being motivated is habits. And the key to building habits is 1%, small progress every day. So don't think I can't do it. Say, I'm going to try doing a little bit today. And by aligning that with this plan that you have, if I do these things regularly, I'll become this. Then it gives, that's why. So when people get demotivated because they don't know where they're doing these things. Okay, my teacher told me to study, I'm studying. And after that, I don't know what to do because they don't have a long-term goal. By linking it to a long-term goal and doing these habits regularly, eventually you'll get to where you want to go. Yeah, and it's very easy to get motivated in that 1%.
So much.
Right? When you say, I want to exercise for 1 hour a day, that's difficult. But can you do 1 push-up? Can you walk for 2 minutes? You can. Everybody has 2 minutes, right? Everybody can do that one thing. So start there. Start with that 1%, and then you can get motivated.
I think you answered one of those questions that the students have posted. How to get motivated for that 1%.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many of them are agreeing to the 1% motivation rule now.
Yeah,
Father,
it's very simple.
Question, Father?
I think they're also keeping to the 1%. Only one question. Keep only one question.
How did I get motivated? The same reason I had this goal, right? I wanted to be this person in this much time. And then I started working backwards. And that meant I need to do these things, right? And so eventually I start by doing by little. So one of the things you can do is put the small kind of a plan sheet, right? Where you say, for each of these habits that you have, you make a tracker, right? And you tick every day that you do the habit. So you know that you're making this progress. And today you've got apps you can do it. But I would say, take a very simple piece of paper, write down the dates 1 to 30, right? For that month, 31 or 28. And then list down your habits. That one sheet of paper every day, go and tick it as you do that one habit. So you've got like a visual thing reminding you that you're doing this habit every day, right? And no matter what happens, before you go to bed, make sure you do that one thing because it only takes 2 minutes, 5 minutes, right? And eventually you start getting there.
Marilyn is having a little, I think, connection problem. I'll take 2 questions.
There is a question where the student had asked that I get motivated, but it
fades off.
Fades off, yeah. That is because there is no structure. See, listening to a session like this shouldn't be getting motivated. right? A session like this fades away. You'll forget about me in probably 2 days, right? Probably 2 hours. What's important is take the action that I'm telling you and start putting that action into play, because that's what's important. What's important is listening and say, when you listen to something interesting, don't let it think of that. Write it down and say, how can I apply this into my life? And then make a plan to apply that. Set a reminder on your phone. I'm going to apply this. So that's what makes it happen. That's where you don't get motivated, because you've got a plan. When you have a plan, you stick to that plan and keep reminders. So there's a lot of things, obviously, very little small session to talk about all of these things, but there's plenty of these areas where you can actually start to build these habits that can get you to where you want to go.
It is an interesting question. Money or happiness? Only that.
Definitely happiness, because you know what? Money is a result of what happiness can bring you, right? Now, what happens? So there was an interesting study. So there's an interesting study that was done that found out that beyond a certain level, money doesn't bring you more happiness than somebody beyond that level. So that beyond that level is, they found out there's an average that's about $75,000 a year for America, right? Which is, if you don't have that much money, you'll be unhappy because you need to take care of your basic needs. So definitely money is required to maintain your basic lifestyle. So your food, your shelter, etc. So you need to be making a certain amount of money. But after that, from $75,000 up to $1 million, there was no difference in the level of happiness. And as it went up higher, from $1 million onwards to people who earned $10 million, they actually were less happier than the people who had 1 million or less. And as it went up higher, the happiness level starts to decrease. So that's interesting, right? That the more money you have, actually you become unhappier. So there's a basic level of happiness that you require, money that you require. But beyond that, I think you should focus on happiness, because that's what will ultimately make you be what you are.
Interesting. Yeah, the question is saying, down the way, I lose interest in 1%.
But see, the thing with that is the end goal, right? The end goal is where. So when you start achieving that end goal, you'll start. So what you need to do is you need to give yourself what is called as tripwires, right? Tell yourself, so my 1% rule needs to make sure that I get something by 3 months, something by 6 months, something by 1. And that's what makes it. One of the ways that they say, one of the scientific ways you can do that is by making it public. By not just doing it 1% by yourself, by saying, you know what, I'm going to make it public. I'm going to tell my friends that I'm going to do this. So automatically now you're accountable, not just to yourself, but to a lot of other people. And that's what's going to keep you motivated, right? So there's a lot of these ways in which you can actually keep on this 1% rule to get better and better. Consistency, yes. So like, right? What's more important, making my family happy or making ourselves happy? Okay. So what you need to understand is you can have both of these things. You can be happy as well as your family is happy. So you need to find that common ground on how you can actually build both of these things together, right? Because that's the key. The key is, so you were born into a family you didn't have control, right? And your family has given you a lot to be where you are. So you need to start saying, how can I get to this? And so we're talking about me or my happy, like us versus them, because you're talking at a base level, right? I'm going to just say, what if you could think about 10 times more than what you can have right now? Wouldn't that change the equation? Right? You can definitely have enough and more for your family as well as your happiness, right? So that's the way of thinking differently. Start looking at what can I have made, like 10x, change the frame of what you're thinking and say, what if I had 10 times more? What if I had 100 times more? And that changes the equation, right? It changes the equation, right? And then you can start seeing it in a whole different light.
Arlene, I'll just combine 2 questions. I think,
Yeah.
One was, what was your motto? And the second was, you two had tough times. How did you overcome? I think you combined these 2 together. So my motto in life was basically improve the quality of my life as well as others. That was my motto in life, right? So whatever I did, I made sure that anything that I was doing, so if I was talking to a friend, I would ensure that that conversation would leave that person and me in a better place. So something as simple as that. So improve the quality of mine as well as the person I meet in everything I did. So every little thing. So what happened was I had to improve everything, right? So if I had just meeting a friend casually, I had to share with him something that he didn't know. And that means I had to read something that I would have to share with that person, right? So that started kind of making me, right, making that improvement in my life to be better. And because I was doing that, there was never a dull moment in my life. Even when things were going, I went through a lot of situations. I had an accident. I couldn't run anymore. There was a time when my business idea was stolen by somebody and they got out and they did that. But what I was thinking was, hey, that's just one thing that happened, right?
the core person that I have hasn't changed, right? So if somebody's taken away one idea, I can have 100 ideas, right? What I am doing is I am building myself. So the key was to say, am I bettering myself every day? And that's where, even when I was demotivated, because I was trying to better myself every day, I wouldn't lose hope. Because for me, I was competing with myself, not with the world. So am I 1% better than what I was yesterday? So even in your darkest moments, if you focus on that, can I be 1% better than what I was yesterday? You're competing with yourself. You will never be down. You will start getting back up.
We'll take the last question, Arlene. I think that's from the YouTube. It will combine two questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now they have crossed the 1%. It has come to fighting out. The last is, sir, how to be more confident in communicating your thoughts? I think that covers 2-3 questions. I think that would be the last.
I think one of the ways in which you can really do that is by communicating with more people. Never miss an opportunity to talk to people, right? So one of the things I did, right, to be, a lot of people might say, right, oh, Donnie, you're speaking well, you speak good. How did you do this? Now, something very surprising. When I was born, I couldn't speak for the first 6 months of my life, right? Like you also, babies don't speak when they're born. So what I was trying to say is that I wasn't a speaker as soon as I was born, right? I was not a person who would speak when I was a kid, but I slowly started realizing that the more I talked, so I started making the conversations with individuals to be more interesting. And I used to talk to my friends. I used to practice with my friends, right? And then slowly, whenever I got an opportunity, I would go and I would make mistakes, but I would go do that again and again and again. So every time I did that, I started building my confidence. So the way to build your confidence in communication is to actually starting to communicate. So never miss an opportunity where you can go and start speaking to others. Use that opportunity. And what you have to do there is take feedback, right? After you do that, present, ask yourself, how can I do this better? And you don't decide, ask the other person who's listening. And when they give you that feedback, the next time, improve that and go back to them. That's how you get better at what you're doing. Right? I think if...
Over to you.
Just before we go, I know a lot of people asking a lot of questions, and I wouldn't be able to answer all of those questions, but I probably have something that I can share with you. So if you can go to I have a website, right? And on my website, I have a newsletter where every week I share some of these ideas that are there in my head, and what I come across is interesting. So if you would like to receive that, I would urge you to probably, I'll just share that. Just go on to...
Correct. Good.
Can you see my screen there?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. So if you can just go to donniepeter.com, and there's an email list subscription where you can just enter your email address, and then every week you'll probably hear from me, and I'll get you these thoughts. Now, if you can't follow me on email, I'm also probably available on social media. So if you can, there's YouTube, I have a channel where if you can subscribe, you get videos, or Instagram, or on Facebook. So that's probably where I dump a lot of my ideas. So if you are wanting to hear more from me, I probably think go onto the website or follow me on these places, and probably you can hear a lot more from me. So with that, I'll probably close. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dhoni. It's always interesting, and we always learn a lot whenever you speak or whenever we listen to you. And I'm sure our students also have learned a lot. If not that 1% they learn, I think it's a very good one. As we end today's program, I would like to thank our resource person, whom I'm sure many of our students would have learned so much. And I'm sure you can learn more by visiting his website and according to the information that he has given. I would like to thank you, Dr. Dhoni, for sparing your time and adjusting to our timing as well. I'm sure, if not for the students, I can say for myself that I've learned so much from you today, and not only today, but from the previous talks as well. We've learned a lot. I would also like to thank Sir Nathaniel, who's always there in the background, helping us every now and then with the technical assistance. And I would also like to thank all our viewers who are viewing us on YouTube as well as through Zoom. Thank you for sparing your time, adjusting your time, and listening to this particular talk. And I'm sure you all would have gained something or the other. The link, as many of you would have asked on the chat box, the link for the attendance will be posted on the chat box. So kindly fill in that link so that you will get your attendance, fill in the feedback form as well. So with this, we will end for today's program. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day ahead. Stay safe, stay healthy as well. Father, did I miss anything or?
Yeah, you will also get certificates.
Yes, you will get an e-certificate as well.
But attendance closes within half an hour to keep to the Australian time of Donichako.
Thank you so much, Father. Thank you once again, Father Joey, for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, Marlene, for hosting us here. Thank you, Nathaniel, sir. And thank you all for listening to me. It was a pleasure.
We'll come back.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Yeah, surely.
Sure.
Surely.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you.